Hey, this week we start out talking about AIO, and then it's wringing a little bit more performance out of ray tracing for AMD. There's Zen 5 news. We talk about Archcraft. We talk about Canonical. We talk about the Linux Foundation, and we get an update on running Fedora 40 in Wayland, but not from me. Hey, it's a great show. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is the Untitled Linux Show, episode 133, recorded January 6th, 2024. It's a technical term.
This show is brought to you by members like you. Thanks.
Well, hey there, good afternoon. It is Saturday, and you know what that means. It is time for Linux geekiness. It's the Untitled Linux Show. Of course, it's not just me, your host, Jonathan, but it is the entire crew today. The holidays are over, which means that our poor zombified workers are back, and hopefully with a little bit more sleep. It's good to have everybody here today, and we've got some stories to cover. Rob decided to be a troll and has the weirdest titles for his stories. So his first one is AIAIO, I think. Rob?
That's it.
I got it.
Old MacDonald had a farm. AIAIO.
Boo.
Well, these days AI is everywhere, and as you'll hear in a few stories today, AI is coming to Linux in a few different ways. So Deepin is a beautiful looking distro, not one that we've talked about a lot on the show, but it's reported to be the first Linux distro to integrate AI features. So the first integration is Deepin IDE. That's Deepin-IDE. Deepin IDE is a new multi-language, cross-platform compatible integrated desktop environment, now available in their App Store, featuring an AI programming assistant. So it's in their App Store, so I guess I'd loosely say integrated, but it's in their App Store. So I don't have Deepin installed anywhere, so I haven't been able to test it out. But I kind of wonder, this kind of sounds like a Copilot for Deepin, or maybe we're more like a Clippy. I don't
know. More like Clippy.
But there's more.
Oh, there's more. There's more.
Yep. So the second app they have started to integrate into AI, they integrated AI into, is their photo viewer app. So in this photo app, AI allows you to retouch or enhance the images in some pretty amazing ways, really. I guess nothing more than you probably can already do with your phone pretty easily, but maybe you got some old ones. Some of the things you can do, some of the amazing ways that are included is blurred background, which you all know what that means. You can delete the background, so you can pull a person out of the background and use them anywhere. You can convert an image to a hand painting, to a 2D comic, which I was thinking about that one. If I wanted to write a comic strip and I can't consistently write the same characters over and over again, I just got to get some people to pose for me and I convert them into a 2D comic. 3D comics, convert them into a sketch. But and maybe one of the best parts of all these AI features is that they happen on your local machine. No unwanted data leaking out into who knows where, at least so they say. There has been some other, maybe there's xenophobic concerns over Deepin. I don't know. But so they say it's not leaking out. It's all on your local machine. And so it's pretty slick there. I'm sure we're going to see more distros adding AI features this year. And I wish I would have put this down as one of my predictions, because I don't think any of us did, but it should have been a pretty obvious one, with last year being kind of the year of AI everywhere else. It only makes sense for it to be coming to Linux pretty soon.
I think we were all being optimistic by leaving it out.
But Yeah, and the other thing I wonder if anyone's heard, I think somebody posted in our Discord this week that Microsoft has a new keyboard with the AI button. I kind of wonder how these distros might utilize that. Just like we took over the Windows key and made it our super key.
Yes. I am glad to hear that it is done locally. I have questions about that. Let's put it this way. You mentioned concerns people had because Deepin comes out of China. It's made by a Chinese company, and you mentioned that people have some trust problems with that, and you mentioned the potential for xenophobia. There's a real narrow line to walk there between what could genuinely be xenophobia, racism against Chinese people, and an understanding of the way the communist government works. And I guess for some people, some overlap between the two. But look, I will put it this way. I distrust things coming out of Chinese corporations similarly to the way that I sort of distrust things coming out of U.S. corporations, because we have the NSA and the CIA, and China has similar organizations in their country. And a healthy dose of skepticism and understanding of what those three-letter organizations will do if they have a good reason to do so, or what they consider to be a good reason to do so. It's worth keeping in the back of your mind. So that's what I will say about that. I'm not super excited about AI on the desktop. I say that there's potential. Like, there are some things that could be really cool. We talked about before the show started, your backgrounds, Rob, are made by Bing AI assistant, which is based on Dolly. You would have a whole lot more Linux cred if you could actually generate those right on your own Linux machine. So maybe that's coming. I've seen some projects out there to try to do that. Those sorts of things excite me more than fancy filters that you can put on pictures. But that's just me.
I'm just thinking, I'm still stuck on, we hit parity with Microsoft when we can have our own Clippy on, and it can be just as helpful.
I mean, there are some nice things you probably can do with old pictures that have been scanned in and make them look new and not washed out, grainy.
So there's because when every once in a while we talk about that picture. Is it not light?
So I got curious back a couple of months ago, and I took a TV show that was in standard definition, uploaded to YouTube. In fact, the TV show was The Green Hornet, which I don't know if anybody remembers that. But
great show.
It was a fun show. It was definitely a show from its time. What you may not know is who it was that played Kato.
Bruce Lee.
Yes, Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee, before he got real famous, was on an American TV show. So anyway, that is your Bruce Lee trivia of the day. I grabbed the download off of YouTube of that show, and I said, well, let's grab one of these AI upscalers and see how it does. The results were mixed, and I was not terribly impressed with the I forget which one it was that I used, but it was one that runs on Linux. The results were not great. I was a little disappointed by that.
Digicam is what I was thinking of. It can sharpen pictures, it can clean things up. They even talk about out of focus pictures. Mm-hmm. It can correct. But keep in mind though, you were using something moving. So video is a lot harder to do than a static image.
Right. Well, I think partially why it didn't do very well is it was not treating it as video. It was treating it as a string of static images. And if you had an AI algorithm that actually saw it as video, it would probably do a lot better.
That makes sense.
I've seen, just like with my phone, I've taken pictures and, I look at the real world and I look at the picture I took on my phone these days and like, oh, that looks so much nicer. Like there's this one that I actually made into a canvas recently because it was just a beautiful shot over this pond. in Florida, actually, with the sun rising on the side.
Mhm.
And, I'm looking at it, and there's like this little bubbler making some waves on the middle. But when I look at the picture, the water just looked smooth and reflective, just perfect.
Was your phone, with the AI in your phone, cooking your picture a little bit?
Yeah, automatically. It just did that.
Wow.
I didn't really think about it first, but the first picture, and I took some more later. I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Makes sense. All right. Well, let's talk about something we could do with our GPUs other than AI, something way more important, and that's gaming. Playing some games. And in this case, playing some games with ray tracing turned on. So one of the fun things about open source video card drivers is we are continuing to improve them, and they're getting better and better. Well, Mesa 24 is going to come out soon, January, I think. And it is slated to land just in time to show up in Fedora 40 and that entire generation of distros. So there is a merge request that just, I believe, got accepted that changes the way ray tracing jobs, kind of tasks, are queued up. And the technical term here is it converts 1D ray launches to 2D ray launches. Well, what was happening with these 1D, one-dimensional ray launches is it was limiting the number of threads that they could use because they were misaligned. Essentially, that you've got your box of components inside your video card, and the way that your tasks were being put in the box was not optimized, essentially. Well, in some games, it makes a huge difference in the ray tracing performance. And so there's been a few of these that got tested. And for instance, Ratchet and Clank Rifts Apart got a 15% uplift. So now instead of 58, it's at 67 FPS. Ghostwire Tokyo went from 36 to 55. That's like a 52% increase. There's a couple of these that are pretty impressive like that. Here's Control. So it looks like there are some games that don't see a whole lot of improvement from this, and one of those is Control. Seems pretty much flat. But then you have other games like The Witcher 3 also gets a pretty big uplift. So I'm pretty excited to see Mesa 24 coming out with Fedora 40. And it's not just this change. There's a whole bunch of stuff in Mesa 24. A lot of it around NVIDIA cards as well. You'll start seeing some NVIDIA card with the kernel and Mesa from that era. You'll start seeing reclocking working, and actually NVIDIA cards starting to be useful for actually doing things without the closed source drivers. So pretty exciting stuff. Looking forward to Mesa 24.
Now, how does this compare against Windows?
I have no idea. I don't. Maybe once it comes out, we'll start seeing those comparisons. That would be very interesting to see, but I honestly don't know.
We'll leave that benchmark into you, Ken.
So I've got to get a Windows system?
Yeah, you have to get hardware that can actually ray trace.
Yeah, we'll see the benchmarks. I'm sure there'll be Michael Arable will take care of that. But
yeah, it'll be real interesting once Fedora 40 comes out. I imagine that's when you'll actually start seeing them. He'll probably do a whole Fedora 40 versus Windows 11, and that'll be cool. Look forward to that.
Here's the big question. Assuming you still have one, how would it look on one of the old CRTs?
I've seen people do stuff like that. So obviously you lose a lot of resolution going to the CRT.
Not very good.
Well, I mean, it depends. Yes, technically speaking, not very good is correct. But if you're doing something like playing Fallout, well, it's going to look great on the CRT because that just totally matches the aesthetic. I think Lazy Game Reviews LGR did that sort of thing, gaming on a CRT just for fun. So it has been done.
Yeah, the softening of a lot of stuff it could help the aesthetic, but a lot of clear images. Some of the newer beautiful scenes out there, yeah, they're not going to look quite as good.
Yes. All right. What is Archcraft? Ken, what is Archcraft?
Well, I'm going to answer that with another question. Is there a Linux distro that can run with only 500 megabytes of RAM?
Several.
Well, according to Saurav Rudra, Archcraft is an interesting Arch-based Linux distribution that can, even though it claims to be just another Linux distribution. It has pre-installed Windows managers, built-in AR support, and follows a rolling release cycle. Archcraft lets you choose between the conventional Calamares installer or the Arch-based installation framework, or ABIF as Saurav calls it. Now, ABIF is a command line based installer, so definitely love trying to play with that sometime.
Mm-hmm.
It lets you pick an open box BSPWM. I'll let you figure out how to say that one, Rob. Or both as your window manager. Despite Archcraft being considered a minimal distro, it is loaded quite well with useful apps. I recommend reading Saurav's article if you want to find out what other desktop flavors it is offered in. And no, it doesn't currently have a KDE as an option, Jeff.
not if it's going to run within 500 megs. Yeah. So when you asked about running at 500 megs of RAM, I immediately thought of OpenWRT. It'll run in 32 megs. I think you could get the kernel itself down real low.
I was thinking tiny core,
but doing it with a full desktop, that is actually beginning to be kind of impressive. There's not. Let me put it this way: I would not try to run Fedora with a GUI on 500 megs of RAM. I do not feel like that would be a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's OpenBox or BSP Windows Manager, which are both very light, so you could probably install them. You could probably install them in regular Arch and get the same experience, but you don't get the the clean, already set up for you installation experience of a normal distro or whatever.
Right. What was that, Jeff?
And I was gonna say I don't know as I would count OpenWRT just because it's very single use.
It is definitely a niche distro. Yes, you would. It's not. You wouldn't put it on desktop.
I was thinking MX Linux because that's pretty lightweight, and often people will use that, and it's very often recommended for old machines. But I haven't checked that, and that's still 2 gigabytes of RAM minimum recommended. So
iLag says that her Arch derivative chokes with 16 gigs of RAM. That's hilarious.
That's what you're doing on it, not the base itself, I don't think.
Or maybe some bad RAM even. You get weird things from that. All right, so that's Archcraft, which sounds pretty interesting for an old machine. I've got an old netbook that might do well with that. But let's turn to Canonical, and we have Jeff with Canonical Corner. I feel like we need a little jingling to go with that. It's Canonical Corner. Do, 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 do.
Well, I have a non-canonical story later in the show, so I figured I'd better balance it out with a little canonical love. I call it the corner because I got three smaller stories here just that I wanted to fire off. First one is Ubuntu is looking to discontinue its source ISOs. Now, this comes from the software that would bundle up all the source codes and place them into the 6 DVD size ISO images is broken. So why have the ISOs? They're good in theory to make sure the GPL license code is available. It's one of the requirements of the GPL that you have to have the source code available. So what's the argument to get rid of the ISOs? Well, the source code is not mirrored with the rest of the binaries, so it's not readily available. You have to only get it from Canonical. The various flavors of Ubuntu are not putting out their own ISOs, so it's limited to just Ubuntu. And, the reason I want to bring this up is because if they do decide to get rid of the source ISOs, the source code is still available. So I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yes.
A person just has to download each package they want the source code for individually. So the only thing that would change is the packaging. Now, it should be noted the ISOs are packaged at the time of release, and they are not kept up to date with patches. So the general feeling is someone is going to want the source code more for a single package or a group of packages, and there are not many that want to download all 6 of the images, and they see very low use. I honestly won't be surprised if they stop packaging the ISOs, and I don't think anybody's going to care. Mm-hmm. But I want to make sure people knew when they heard, oh, they're going to get rid of the ISOs, source code ISOs. The source code is still available. It's just packaging change is all it is. The second story I need to bring up is because it ties in with my prediction I had about snaps becoming accepted by more distributions. Now, I did not have any pre-knowledge of this, but developer, and I'm sorry for mangling this, Zygmunt Krenicki, who worked at Canonical from 2012 to 2020, shared today that he's returning to the company to work on cross-distribution Snap support. So he wrote that he's going to be spending full time on working to make Snap more friendly for other distributions. And so that's going to be his full-time job. There's also going to be work on polishing the whole Snap experience and performance improvements. I kind of thought I would check the comments on what the general feel for this was, but there were so many blatantly wrong statements that I kind of stopped reading very quickly. I mean, it really gets almost to the level of a holy war for people between Snap and Flatpaks, and it kind of gets silly personally, I think. But, for me, I'm just going to chalk it up to a wait and see, see if I can get a win in the predictions for next year. But I'm excited to see where this goes and how effective this initiative is going to be. And the idea is they open it up beyond just Canonical. So, and we've had stories a story in the past where I talked about how you can set up a Snap and a Snap store without Canonical at all. So we'll wait and see how that one turns out.
And that is apparently pronounced Krenitsky, according to the internet.
Ah, okay. Well, I pre-apologize because I knew it was. I'm not good at that. So my final story is a short one, but Ubuntu 2304 is going end of life near the end of this month, January 25th to be exact. So if you're on 2304, you need to upgrade to 2310. This also applies to the flavors of Ubuntu, the Kubuntus, Lubuntus, Xbuntus, and so on. I won't go into it here, but there's an upgrade process you can follow, so you don't need to wipe your system, and many guides can be found online for making this happen. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes for a normal speed system, and your times will vary on how fast your internet connection is and how beefy your hardware is. But if you're on 2304, time to upgrade and move on to the next revision.
Yeah, so my first thought with 2304 ending is I'm almost surprised that they didn't stretch it out so you could go straight to 2404. But on second thought, that's really not very surprising because 2304 is not a special release in any way. It's just one of their regular releases. And you can certainly go from LTS to LTS. So
yeah, they do that every time.
Yeah.
And with LTS to LTS, it's going to be 2204 to 2404.
Right.
Correct.
Which, it's not been that long ago, but boy, 2204 is really a creaky release these days. It's old.
With that Snap story, I was thinking about that. I was looking at that earlier this week too, and it. I wish him good luck, but it seems like an uphill battle. Like, they have somebody whose job it is now to try to get other distributions to adopt it. I think the first step, I know they got the server, at least some parts of the server code open, but I think if they really want to do it, they should have a turnkey solution. Here it is. Here's your code, and Fedora, you can have your own store. Here's your code. You don't have to, take bits of it and what we have and build your own web part and just make a turnkey, and because it's already going to be an uphill battle, I think.
Yeah. I read that story a little bit differently, that it's less about trying to talk Fedora and Arch and all of those other folks into doing this. I read it more that he's just going to make it work. And so, if if there's not really a path at this point, so let's just take Fedora. If there's not really a path to get it officially included, well, what's the next best thing? Snap and RPM Fusion. Or, you go to snap.com or what have you, and I don't know if that's the right URL, but, go to the Snap URL and here's a Fedora RPM, and we will, you click here, you download it, you install it, and then it'll be on your system just like the rest of your system.
You can already do that. When I used Fedora, I had snaps, and I did my different benchmarking with snaps and Flatpaks and the local stuff with the browsers back when I was using Fedora. And I think installing a snap was pretty simple. I want to say it might have been in the repos even, I'm pretty sure snap was in the repos.
Yeah, so the point still stands, though, that I'm sure what he is mainly going to be looking at is how do you make that experience better for these different distros? And Fedora may not be the best example to go with, because
maybe that's the problem
there.
My experience on Fedora and Arch is they just work. It's just like everywhere else. They work the same as snaps work anywhere else. I've never noticed any difference. I suppose I haven't benchmarked them across the distros. Maybe there's some difference there. I don't see why though. I mean, they're their own container. They just work. Well, I don't know what else they can improve.
Snaps need a little speed. They're a little bit slow to start up sometimes.
You mean
that's everywhere, though?
You mean
that's even on Ubuntu too?
Are you trying to say that they're not snappy enough?
They're not snappy enough.
What a name.
But there are technical advantages to Snap. There's some OS deep down stuff that snaps can do that Flatpaks can't. And I think some of it's going to be if they can get the polish a little higher, there's going to be certain distributions jumping on Snap just from a technical perspective.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I guess what I disagree with that is the maybe phrasing it then in that case is they're really, the way you say it is they're just improving snaps in general in hopes that others will adopt it as well.
Well, and they're trying to make it easier. So they're not only trying to polish snaps in and of themselves, they're also trying to, you're running your Rob Linux distribution and they're going to try to make it
Arch, by the way.
Arch derivative. Okay. So
no, not derivative. Hold on.
No, I mean, you're talking like you're rolling your own.
Okay.
Or you take over Arch. Either way, then you have this simpler path to follow to get your own snap packages rolling. So you can just say, okay, I'm following this. Here's it's kind of pre-bundled. I can set up my own repositories, my own snap store. I can,
right, and that's
and make it real easy.
What I was saying is make a turnkey snap store for people like Rob's Arch derivative.
Right.
Is it possible snaps may end up finding more use on servers versus desktops for the server applications?
Possibly. That's one of the intriguing things that they can do. So snaps sort of have the capability of replacing Docker images as well to some extent, and that's fairly interesting that they can do kind of play on both sides of the fence there.
And
honestly, I find that to be the probably the top selling point of Snap is that they can be your user facing applications, they can be command line applications, and they can also run as daemons, and that's actually pretty cool.
And I understand that argument. We've said that before on here, that the server may be the best place, but at least for me, I do run Ubuntu servers, and that's actually the one place I refuse to install them on, because I like my servers to be clean, just the services I need. And once you put snaps, it puts all those fuse file systems or
Squash FS.
Squash file system. There we go. It just messes it up, and I hate that clutter on my server. I want it to be clean and minimal as I can.
Oh, so you're hating security. I see how it is.
I think
lock them down myself.
Jeff spent too much time reading through some of those comments on the Snap. He's channeling his inner forum lurker.
Rob, I just have one question for you. Would you rather run Audacity as a flat pack or as a Snap?
Whichever one works.
Yeah, I wouldn't really
whichever
care.
one comes with AI.
Well,
take it away.
AIO. So, yeah, I'm bringing back the AI topic again because it's a year of AI. I don't know, for Linux,
I guess.
So, not a Linux distro.
Rob must have sold his Microsoft stock and bought stock in OpenAI.
So yeah, we're not talking about a distro here. As Ken may have spoiled it for you, we're talking about Audacity. So it's it's not like Deepin where we got the coding, we got the images, and now with Audacity, we're gonna have the audio because Intel is bringing some AI audio effects to Audacity in the form of their OpenVino, I would say, OpenVINO, AI plugin for Audacity. So like the Deepin AI features, these are also designed to work locally. So no cloud servers, no signups or subscriptions are required to use them. And the list of features is pretty slick. Maybe something we could use for our audio show. But I prefer the video show, so we'll have to hold out, I guess. That's something we're missing, I guess. But anyway, the features. So they have effects for editing spoken word audio, such as podcasts, audiobooks, and interviews, and effects for music creation production, such as noise suppression to obviously suppress noise. Transcription to transcribe and or translate words and output to a label track. Music generation to generate new music from a prompt. So I may get my music career going after all these years with AI's help. Music style remix to generate new music based on pre-existing music. So maybe I could take a couple of my old songs. I've made some old songs in the day, and maybe I can make some stuff based on that. So I don't have to worry about the copyright stuff. Music separation to split a song into vocals and instrumental parts, which will be nice for some of those that I did not record on a 4-track. Yes, I recorded a 4-track years ago. I could break those back apart and remix them. Could be slick there. So yeah, some pretty slick new AI features are now coming in the form of audio to Linux folks. But unfortunately, at this time, us Linux users are going to have to compile the plugin on our own. They do have some good step-by-step directions that I've looked at that should make it a little easier. And I'm sure we'll get some binaries before too long. It's not that hard to make a binary and just use it everywhere unless there's some complicated library linking. I don't know. Snap it up. Great use for a snap. You know what? Let's snap it. You're right, Ken.
Makes
I'm
sense.
sold.
So there are actually a couple of things in here that would be really cool. Noise suppression is actually one that I'm very fascinated by, because that is a problem that some of us run into. I have been.
Jeff's buzzing. We haven't heard that for a while, but
see, Jeff took care of
I
his
had
buzzing.
to say something.
Jeff figured out what was causing his buzzing. No, my problem is all the fans in here, all the computer fans. So I've got computer right over there, I've got the laptop there, my wife's computer is right over there, the server is over there, and now I have a Raspberry Pi cluster right over there too, and each one of those has at least 2 fans on them, so sort of surrounded by fan noise. And yes, I have considered trying to do something about that. Fascinating.
I have recorded some music myself back in the day. Nothing great, but I recall one of the problems. I've tried to pull that into Audacity or some other tools and remix it, because there's a slight hiss and various sounds in the background that I minimized. That I would love to maybe go back, because I'm not. I don't know if I'm as good as I'm used to, but I could go back and remix some of my old stuff and make it even better for today. Break those tracks apart, do the noise suppression.
Yeah, particularly if you have the sources, the individual tracks, the multi-track recording of it.
Well, I have that in the form of a cassette.
Oh,
I don't. Because it's an actual 4-track cassette recording. I don't feel like breaking that out and redoing that, but still, I mean, one of the features is the music separation to split a song from vocals and instrumental parts. So, I don't know. I don't know if I want to compile this myself. So I kind of look forward to the time when it's made available to me. But
just throw take your old hissy bad audio and throw it at AI and say, do your magic and see what pops out.
I'll just do what Jeff would do and
do what Jeff would do.
Run it in Windows.
That's a low blow.
That hurts. Where's the love?
So there is
get a snap that's got a wine running the Windows version of Audacity.
That's probably a thing. I'm sure that's a thing. There is something else that has popped out here recently, and that is some interesting news about Zen 5. And one of the fun places that we get to find these little leaks is in the Linux kernel source code. So there have been, this is a Phoronix article, there's been, back to last July, there have been kernel patches about the new Family 26, or you may see it called Family 1AH processors. And there's been sort of this theory that it's going to be for Zen 5 for quite a while. And we actually have a patch from AMD that formally has the Zen 5 string in it now, and there's a define of x86_feature_Zen 5. So I found it pretty fascinating. Not a whole lot of information yet about what all is going to be in there. I did see that it was a pretty comprehensive remake of the platform. So what Intel would have called a TOC instead of just a tick, I believe. Expect to see, again, AVX 512 in there. I doubt AMD is going to drop that feature. So some other stuff. I am not entirely up with the Zen 5 rumors. Are any of you guys following Zen 5 any closer?
I cannot say anything.
Okay, understood.
Not enough to know what they're going to call them.
I can't say anything either.
I'm not sure I believe Rob.
I can't. I mean, I can't talk about what I don't know anything about. I can. I've done it before.
I was going to say that's your calling card, man.
That's what I'm on the show for.
So one of the interesting things about Zen 5 is that it's going to be based on TSMC's both their 4nm and their 3nm process. So we're looking at another chiplet design. They're going to call it at least the desktop processors are going to be the Ryzen 8000. And we do have a code name of Granite Ridge. So we have a little bit of information about them. And apparently they're going to be ready to go on Linux because AMD has been pushing code for quite a while about it. Any more than that, we will just have to wait.
Yeah, I will be honestly very surprised if we ever see a design that's not a chiplet design.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because that's kind of the way everything's going.
Especially as there's more and more competition for fab time. Because the chiplet design is one of the things that kind of relieves that fab bottleneck, because you can make one chip on two separate fabs at the same time.
Correct.
And is it true that you want to buy the one ending with RX and not the HD model?
HD versus RX. I don't. That rings a bell, but I don't actually know what you're talking about, Ken.
Well, on the AMD 7000 series GPU?
I have not followed the AMD video cards for quite a while. I've been happy with mine, so I honestly don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, and really, you need to look at every generation because the lettering, numbering, everything changes. So what is you need to buy this time could be totally different the next time.
This
so
coming
I
from an NVIDIA guy.
Hey, he has said, give him enough time and he may think about it for the next purchase.
Hey, I kind of really took a step in a different direction this week. You'll see my last story and you'll know. One thing I did want to go back to really quick is, so the chiplet design where Jonathan was talking about different fab stuff, what goes on is you have different geometries of chips and certain things like maybe network interfaces. They don't need to be very small, so you can fabricate those on larger geometries, which are cheaper, and then you can just put that in versus the parts that need to be really small and fast. And by mixing that, you can come up with a better performing processor, and natural fabrication mistakes and issues are much less impactful because your chips are smaller. So you don't take out, one bad part of a die doesn't take out a huge chunk of silicon. It takes out a smaller chunk of silicon.
Yeah, and AMD kind of piloted all of that with the Zen architecture when they, as Intel put it, glued chips together. Well, what they were doing is that they were using essentially a fast PCI Express interface to talk from the different halves of the chip to talk to each other. And it's kind of snowballed from there. Everybody else finally got on board with that and says, this is kind of a good idea. We're going to try it too.
But Intel, they say they're not gluing chips, they're
right. They're doing something else that's not gluing that looks a lot like what AMD did that was gluing. Yeah,
they're taping them, or they're
stitching or
adhering them.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, it's not glue. It's adherence.
Ken, let's go to the other side of the performance spectrum, and let's talk about the Raspberry Pi, but not a Raspberry Pi 4 like I have here. You've got a Raspberry Pi 5 that you want to talk about, don't you?
And an operating system. Well, Jonathan, Marius Nestor and Bobby Borisov may have found my next distro to try on my Raspberry Pi. In fact, I know they have. It's the MX Linux Raspberry Pi edition and has been tested on the Raspberry Pi single board computers. Bobby says it also operates flawlessly on earlier Pi models like the Raspberry Pi 3 Model B. Now, I'll use Chromium by default since the MX Linux devs explain its startup speed is faster than Firefox's on the Raspberry Pi hardware. I'm glad I picked up a 32 gigabyte micro SD card since MX Linux 23.1 Raspberry Pi respin needs a minimum of 16 gigabit free disk space. Now, I'm even going to get to use my favorite desktop environment, XFCE, it's going to be version 4.18, as the default desktop environment running on top of Debian Bookworm's long-term supported Linux 6.1 LTS kernel series. In fact, earlier today, I installed it on here and was playing with it for about 30 minutes. Noticed that it does have some applications that I use on a regular basis, such as GNU Cache, LibreOffice, and Handbrake that you can download to it. Later this week, I'm hoping to download Handbrake and compare its speed to my old Lenovo ThinkCenter.
Oh, that'll be interesting. That'll be very interesting to see which one goes faster.
I think I know which one.
Yeah. All right. So I have a question about this. I am very curious, and you may or may not know the answer. So are they using the official? Are they using a vanilla kernel, or are they using the Raspberry Pi OS upstream stuff? Because there are, especially with the Pi 5, I think there are still some things that don't quite work right with the vanilla kernel. You've got to have the Raspberry Pi's, particularly baked kernel?
Well, since I installed it through the Raspberry Pi imager, I'm going to assume they're using the Raspberry Pi baked one.
And that would take care of a lot of possible problems. Did you have another?
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the developers, at least he used to be a listener, and he's still a member of Club TWiT.
Oh.
So if Adrian or Adrian TM in the Discord listens to this, he could always update us on
let us know. There you go.
That detail and any questions you got.
I had not put that together. That's very neat. Did you have another Raspberry Pi story, or do I get to talk about something I'm using with the Raspberry Pi?
You get to talk about it
Okay.
because both of those are just different versions there. But I do also have a link to a video that I found when I booted up, so that y'all can watch that and see how they give a demo of using it.
In which Ken is going to rickroll us all, I'm sure. So I got, about a week ago, I don't know if I've talked about this on the show before or not. I paid for it. It's not like this is sponsored or anything, but this is the hat drive from Pineberry Pi. This works with the Raspberry Pi 5. And it is so one of the neat things about the Raspberry Pi 5 is they had an extra PCI Express port, an extra pair of PCI Express lanes to do something with. Well, they exposed it, and there's now just a plug on one end of the Raspberry Pi 5. And these guys said, wouldn't it be interesting if you could plug an NVMe drive into that? Well, so now there is the M.2 hat drive. This is the one that goes on top, and they've got a second one, a different model that actually goes underneath the Raspberry Pi, which that one works better for what I'm doing, because then you can stack a different hat on top. And so this is actually really interesting. And so if anyone is looking to run a Raspberry Pi 5 as your primary desktop, which you can actually do that. You could do that with the 4 as well. It was fast enough to make a usable desktop. Well, with the 5, it's going to be even better. If you do go to do that, man, if you can afford it and get one of these, and then get an NVMe drive, get your a decent one, something by like Micron or one of the other players out there that make good ones. That's not quite sponsored either, but anyway, I just for those of you that get annoyed with SD cards failing on you, I am extremely excited about the hat drive, and I've had real good success with it so far. All right, Jeff, you want to talk about the Linux Foundation's annual report? Anything interesting in here?
There is, and I also want to clear up any kind of issues. We'll talk about it later, but there was one kind of report that was a little derogatory, but it wasn't true. But kind of backing up a little bit, the Linux Foundation has released their annual report. And for those who are not aware, the Linux Foundation was founded in 2000 as a nonprofit organization and supports not only Linux, but open source software in general. There's a board of directors running the organization with 24 members, and there's a lot of big names on the board, such as Microsoft, Intel, Samsung, Oracle, Red Hat, Meta, just to name a very few on the list. There's a lot of heavy hitters on there. The foundation provides training, financial and intellectual resources, infrastructure, services, and promotion, to name a few things that they do. They also provide a neutral space where many different stakeholders can collaborate on open source software. So you can have multiple companies have kind of a safe space where they can collaborate and not worry about somebody's going to suddenly take the software and do something they shouldn't. Now, I'm just going to be hitting on the high points in this segment because there's a 160-page document, which is linked in the story in the show notes if you want to know all the minutia. At a high level, the Linux Foundation had $262 million in revenue and spent $269 million. Revenue comes from 4 main sources: membership and donations, which makes up 45%. Project support around innovations brings in 26%. Event sponsorship and registration at 19%. And training and certifications at 10%. In the report, they have a nice graphic with 17 different things they spend their money on when defined in the project technical segment. I won't go through them all, but the biggest by a wide margin is cloud containers and virtualization at 25%. Mm-hmm. If you look at project type, the largest open source is the largest chunk of the pie is open source software at 72%, and open standards and specifications taking 20%. The other 5 are all in low single digits for spend. Now, I want to bring this up for 2 reasons. The first is, while we download our distributions of choice, there's a significant investment to make all this happen. It just doesn't appear. And they also don't support everything because there's just too many projects in the open source field for that. So just know, though, that there are millions being spent on open source software, and that it really, and that's just what goes through the Linux Foundation. Lots of companies fund, projects directly, and people do as well as individuals. The second reason I bring this up is I ran across an article that was, this was a couple months old, talking about how the Linux Foundation was only giving 2% of their funds to Linux, and they were all in on cryptocurrency. And, and I thought, that doesn't seem right. But I did a little digging and found out they're not doing that. Greg Crow Hartman said in a response to the article that they're getting more kernel support than ever before, and that basically what the article was saying wasn't true at all. They feel even better supported today by the Linux Foundation. So if you run across something that says the Linux Foundation is walking away from open source, that just isn't true. And you can rest easy that the Linux Foundation is still supporting open source projects.
It is worth pointing out that this is something Simon Phipps brings up from time to time on Floss Weekly. The Linux Foundation is not a nonprofit. It is a trade organization. So it is beholden to the interests of its members, right? Well, but the thing that brings all of the members together is their interest in Linux and the rest of the open source ecosystem. So it's there is a delicate balance there that has to be maintained. Right. But as far as I can tell from the outside, and even looking at numbers like you're running here, they're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, that's a potential interesting dance that I was not aware of, but it's really like a lot of businesses really doing the right thing is good for business. In this case, a little bit more than most.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the ideal, right? You want your business and your economy and your laws set up in such a way that when a business is producing products, that is being honest and producing products that is useful for your population, your business makes money. Because if things are not set up that way, everything goes really bad really fast. So I absolutely I do not besmirch them at all for making money, for having money come in. And so long as they are being responsible with the way that it's getting funneled back to, these different initiatives and developers and all of that, then good for them.
Yeah, and I do. Mashed Potato is Linus Torvalds not a part of this group? And as far as I know, he is not. But the Linux Foundation is much broader scoped than just like the kernel. There are a lot of open source in general. So Linus Torvalds is currently employed by the Linux Foundation. They pay his paycheck so that he gets to work on Linux.
So that's why they're always in debt.
But he's, I guess maybe I was reading it but he's not I don't think he's a steering member, is he?
He's not a member of the board per se.
I have no idea where he is officially inside the Linux Foundation. He is a part of it in that they pay his paycheck. He is a steering member in that he doesn't care so much what they say. He's going to put into the kernel what he thinks needs to be in there. Because that he could walk away from the Linux Foundation and there is 1,000 companies that would just fall over themselves to hire him. So
well, let's check if he's a Club TWiT member and ask him.
Yeah. I would love to. I'd love to interview Torvalds for Floss Weekly or something. That would be a lot of fun. We actually years and years and years ago, real early on Floss Weekly, I think it was Randall sat down with him at one of the conventions they both went to. FOSDEM or the Plumbers Convention or something like that. It's been a long time ago, though. Time to have him back.
Well, it says that he became part of Linux Foundation as part of a merger. There was another open source group he was a part of, and when they merged some together to...
I can believe that.
They bought him.
bought and paid for.
And I'm looking at the board right now. I do not see him on the board.
Yeah, that's not surprising. Honestly, his time is better spent merging code than playing with the politics of the board, in my opinion.
I would agree with that.
I don't think he'd want to play with the politics.
No, I can't imagine Torvalds being interested or particularly good at that.
But he is one of the fellows in the foundation.
There you go. That doesn't make sense.
Which a fellow is not a male or female title. It is a kind of a status saying you're a subject matter expert.
Indeed.
You're one of the top people in your field.
It's a technical term. All right. Rob, is this a play on IC Fire? IP
Nope.
Fire?
IP Fire. But don't worry, I'm okay. So IP Fire is it's a Linux firewall distro. You know, Jonathan's always telling you about his open warts, but I'm going to share about an update to an alternative firewall distro with some few new features. So anyway, unlike OpenWrt or OpenWRT, IP Fire is a firewall distro designed to be installed on more standard computer hardware. I don't believe it's made for replacing the firmware on like your TP-Link router like you can do with OpenWrt, but maybe you could if you put some work into it. So IP Fire 2.27 Core Update 182 has been released this week with some notable changes, at least one that I'm going to talk about here. So the biggest change is in the default firewall policy to block outgoing SMTP port 25 traffic from internal networks by default. The idea is to block spammers from sending out of your network and putting you on a blacklist.
A lot of ISPs do this already. Anyways.
Some do, which I've seen. Before I got into the story, I was actually a little more excited about this feature. The headline I read stated, the update would be blocking spammers by default. And I thought, awesome. It's going to have some kind of list or something to block incoming spam emails from getting to my email servers or something. But it just blocks outgoing email in general, which a simple firewall rule can change. Nothing fancy.
Yep.
By the time I kind of realized it wasn't that fancy, I was a little too deep. So I'm just going to keep going. So I guess this clickbait got me this time.
It gotcha.
So I'm just going to keep going with it. Anyway, also some ISPs do it, some don't. Working with an ISP myself and in IT, I've seen a lot of computers get compromised and spam sent out on SMTP port 25 or becoming an open relay for it. But I've also, from the ISP side, I've seen many people call in when they can't send out email because they're traveling somewhere and the ISP that they're on is blocking port 25. So, I know these days, most, probably a lot of what I've seen that's maybe started to get aged a little bit, but it's still there. Most are using 578 or 465 to send out email, but not everyone. And I don't know. I don't see what reason why spammers can't switch those ports, but you may run into some issues. Just be aware that that's there on new installations of IP Fire. Updates are not going to put this in there. It's a good thing, though. I'd prefer to keep that stuff off my computers on my networks in the first place and just start there. But anyways, I've got a little off topic. Overall, IP Fire, it seems like a pretty nice firewall distro with all the business grade features you would expect, such as stateful packet inspection, intrusion prevention system, a couple ways to do VPN, and really about everything else. You can buy hardware from them, which is like x86 hardware or Intel stuff. Heck, they had some pretty expensive like what they called enterprise grade. I can't remember how much it was, but it was multiple thousands of dollars for it. And then with IP Fire installed, so you don't need to buy that hardware. You can just stick it on your own Intel-based computer and set it up however you want. But it seems like it has all the features you could want from a business firewall. Mm-hmm. And this release adds that one major change that could protect you from becoming a spammer, or could just block you from emailing people.
Yeah, so we've got a listener, Aaron, points out that IP Fire is actually a fork of IP Cop, which is interesting. He says IP Fire is what some of the IP Cop team wanted to implement back in the day, and it's a good solution. So nifty. I'm real curious. Do we know? Do they have like a paid support or something like this usually isn't something you can get for free, but like a rolling list of bad IP addresses that it'll just block access to? That is something that can be fairly useful.
I wasn't seeing anything about paid support under their shop. They just have like hardware that you can purchase from them. Mm-hmm. I bet they have those IP lists and stuff. I don't know that for sure, but yeah, I bet they do.
I know
from looking at the release notes, basically it just blocks any outgoing connections on port 25.
Yep. So I know you can take like the spam house lists. I don't know how many of you, I'm sure Rob is familiar with that. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody else may not. So that's one of the big spam blocking companies. And they have these fairly comprehensive lists of IP addresses that are known to send spam, known to send out malicious stuff. And you do the lookups with DNS. So I forget exactly how how you create the DNS request, but it's something like the IP address .spamhouse.org. It's something like that, and it will give you back a response based on whether or not it's in the list. So it could be really interesting to tie something like this into, say, the Spamhaus service. And if an IP address is known for, this is how a lot of spam blocking works. If an IP address is known for sending spam, it'll just drop the email from them. Well, you could take that further, and on outgoing connections, if your browser is trying to get to an IP address, but that IP address is known to serve malware, just block the connection, reroute it off to a page that says, hey, you probably don't want to go to this site. It'd be really nifty to see that in more open source solutions. I know some proprietary ones have it.
Yeah, and it really depends on how those emails travel to you, if they're actually coming directly from their servers or again relayed somewhere. If those spammers compromise somebody's computer, like what this is to protect, mm-hmm. and then spams out from there, I mean, eventually they're going to get on that list as a blacklist. But
I can tell you from experience, it happens pretty quick. And then you get customers that call you pretty quick saying, man, nobody can receive my emails. Why?
Quick tip, mxtoolbox.com.
Yes, that one is a good one. Punch your IP address in there. In fact, they've got a service where you can punch your mail server's IP address in there and say, hey, keep an eye on this for me. Oh. And they'll send you an email once a week or so, letting you know if there's a new problem. Pretty nifty. Yeah, that's a really good tip. All right, let's see what is up next. Oh, it's me. Goodness. Wayland. So there's a bit of Wayland news going on, and something that just cracked me up. So Google Chromium to be precise, pulled a merge request adding VA API, that is one of the video acceleration APIs, adding it to their Wayland backend. Now, when you run Chrome or Chromium, you generally are running the X11 backend. And if you're running it on Wayland, you use the X-Wayland shim in there. And for most of us for now, that is fine. There are some pretty interesting things that are going to start coming down the pipe with a fully Wayland backend, like eventually HDR is going to start working on all of those things. Well, getting closer and closer to that happening, this patch now flips on via API. So doing things like watching videos on YouTube and other sites now have the ability to be accelerated through DRM. So that is a nifty step in the right direction. And then along with that, there is apparently also a patch that needs to get merged into Mesa for that to actually start working correctly. We got a link off to that as well. Pretty good chance that that's going to land soon, maybe for Fedora 40. So there are Fedora 40 devs in the comments on this Mesa thread saying, hey, this would be great to have for Fedora 40. Can we go ahead and merge this, please? It's about a week ago that, no, even a day ago was the most recent comment like that. So hopefully we'll see it land in Mesa 24. That would be really neat. And then one other thing in the Phoronix forums that really it tickled me. I thought it was hilarious, and it was a sarcastic comment that says, "No, you are imposing Wayland on us. It's someone else's fault that I bought an NVIDIA card, and now I must spam a forum about how inconvenient that is for me."
Jeff.
I got a kick out of that.
Is that Jeff?
Now,
Jonathan said he wouldn't reveal me.
You say he wouldn't call you out, and he did.
Now the fun thing is that Jeff does have a story about that here at the end of the show. But I'm pretty delighted to see more and more things embracing the Wayland future, and more things going to start working correctly for it. So, you've got Chromium getting on board, and we can now all watch our YouTube videos in full 4K 60 FPS glory.
Or use Firefox.
Or use Firefox, I suppose. All right, Ken, you've got a story here about Nicholas Worth, is it?
Yes. And this week, Liam Proven had the sad duty of writing an obituary for the Swiss computer scientist, Professor Nicholas Worth.
Yeah, of Pascal, right?
Correct. He died on New Year's Day, roughly 6 weeks before what would have been his 90th birthday. Mm. He is justly celebrated as the creator of the Pascal programming language. Now, its creation was a result of a proposal called Algol-W, which Worth and British computer scientist Sir Tony Hoare presented. However, the committee rejected it, so Worth took his proposal, changed it to be somewhat less compatible with Algol, and released it in 1970 under the name Pascal. He also coined a law of computer design in his 1995 paper titled A Plea for Lean Software.
Oh.
That states,
yes,
you may know this one, Jonathan.
Yes.
Software is getting slower more rapidly than hardware becomes faster.
Oh, yes. It's sadly true.
I've just touched on some of Nicholas Worth's contributions covered by Liam in his article, but let us remember his contributions to computer science and programming languages.
Yep. Absolutely. One of the all-time greats, and sad to see him go. All right. Now on to Jeff and his not whining about having an NVIDIA card. Jeff, you sort of girded up your loins and jumped right in, didn't you?
I did. So I'm going into uncharted territory with this next story. So historically, I've run Red Hat. I've been on CentOS in the past, but it's been a while, and I've never run Fedora. And, I wanted to try KDE 6, and I kind of tried not to run Fedora. So I first downloaded KDE Neon, unstable, and tried to install it on a partition on my system. And long story short, I could never get it to work. It'd either hang, quietly hang, or it would core dump near the end of the boot sequence, or, I just could never get it to work. And I tried several boot options and safe modes and various things with no luck. And, this is the unstable build, and I might have just caught it on a bad day. I have run unstable in the past, so I know it works. It just at this time in the state on the day I downloaded it, it wasn't working for me. Well, then I decided I was going to give Fedora 40 a shot, as it seemed the most stable of the other distributions out there, which had KDE 6. And I want to state right now, I don't have anything against Fedora other than I know the apt package manager and the Debian-based distribution's better. So there's no technical reasons I didn't want to run it. Just I had to learn a little more. But I do want to give Mirora on our Discord a shout out, as they helped me by not, I didn't have to Google some of the commands and repository names. I was booting and setting things up, and they helped me out quite a bit. So they were able to give me an almost instant answer when I had a question. And I would say that DNF is kind of close to APT with some subtle differences. They're at least in the same time zone. Because I normally run KDE, booting into Fedora 40 with KDE is a lot like what I experience on KDE 5 with X11. So graphically, it was very, very similar. I will say I was surprised how well the beta is working. I installed the proprietary drivers, and that went smooth. I haven't really seen any issues so far running Fedora. The issues I have seen are when running Steam on Wayland. There's sometimes a flicker, not often, not super apparent, just like a slight one frame flicker, and it doesn't always happen. The other things is sometimes I would click on something both in Wayland and Wayland, and sometimes the first click wouldn't take. Though it happened on probably like 1 out of 20 clicks. So I'm not sure what the common thing is, or, it's nothing I could ever get to repeat, And I'm clicking on Steam, clicking on the sound volume button, something in Firefox, you never knew what it was. Sometimes it just wouldn't register. But if you try to do it again, you couldn't ever make it repeatable. So, it is beta software. I tried playing around for a while. Everything seemed to work for me. Though I do have pretty recent hardware. I have a 7000 AMD CPU and an NVIDIA 40 series card. Currently, Fedora 40 is running the 6.7 release candidate 7 kernel, and I loaded up NVIDIA driver, the latest new feature version 545.29.06. So far things are running smooth, no crashes. Now I haven't ran it for days. I've just been running it a few hours at a time. I haven't converted to Fedora, but I've been playing in there some, and just seeing what works and what doesn't. Various things like copy and paste, things like that seem to be working just fine. So it seemed very polished, I thought, for a beta on KDE, and even Fedora. I thought it was pretty smooth.
Yeah,
and
Fedora's not even a beta yet. We're not even to the alpha, not even to the alpha freeze for another week or two. It is very much still in flux.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I was surprised. It seems to be running really good. And honestly, it was pretty familiar for me, at least, like I said, graphically, because, it wasn't until I hit the command line that I would notice much of a difference. Everything else was just like on Kubuntu that I run. I'd love to hear from anyone else running NVIDIA hardware on Wayland 6 and what your thoughts and impressions are, but mine are, man, it's going great. I love it.
Yeah. Now, do you have anything, any exotic hardware? Do you have like a variable refresh rate monitor or any of that to check out?
I do.
Does that work?
My monitors? Yeah, it seemed, well, I didn't actually. I need to load a game probably that would drag it down to. My monitor only goes to 120 hertz, so I'll have to give it a shot. I was thinking about Tomb Raider's got a pretty good benchmark in it that I can crank way up, or Cyberpunk, and see how that works.
Yeah, I'd be really curious to know whether like VRR works out of the box or if there's much fiddling that needs to be done with that. Some of those things. But yeah, that's nifty that it's given you a good experience with, like I said, such an early copy of it. Not even an alpha freeze for Fedora and still in the betas for KDE 6.
Yeah, I figured it was probably in, like I said, probably in beta because I didn't have any issues. The hardest part I had was installing it just from just
because it's not what you're used to.
It's not what I was used to. And I'm like, this kind of installer is a little clunky, but I figured it out. And, I guess maybe the devil you know versus the devil you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a similar experience. I had to do a Debian install for a development box, and going through the Debian 12 installer. It's like, good night. This is clunky. I really missed my Fedora Anaconda installer.
And I tried the new beta. I don't remember what the name is, but I tried the new beta installer.
Oh,
I used it.
I've not used that one yet.
Because there's two options in there when you install, and you're going to load on your disks. There's whether you install, partition one way, or it gives you an option to partition another. And I tried the new one, and
cool.
It worked. There was a few more button presses and whatnot that I thought there should have been, but it worked fine once I kind of figured out what I was doing.
Yeah. Neat.
Some of that was a loose nut behind the keyboard.
Always. Well,
I'm looking forward to Wayland 6.
Yeah.
Or I mean KDE 6 with Wayland.
It's all the same thing. We knew what you meant.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is our news for the week. Let's move into some command line tips. We're going to let Rob go first. And Rob, what is this? What is this in my web browser here?
All right. So it's not exactly Linux, but something, not exactly a tip, not exactly productive, but maybe I'll find some productive uses for it, but more something to play with. And, you can figure out for yourself if you have use for it. But if you've ever been looking for a quick operating system in the browser.
Yes, that's what I look for just every other week.
Yeah, maybe you just want a place to work on some files that's I don't know, your wife can't get to. I don't know. Pooter, Puter, short for computer. Pooter.com or pewter.com, however I guess you want to say that. Is the place you might want to check out. So on here, you go to it, and you have a desktop that looks a lot like.
Goodness.
I mean, it's a desktop, and you got your menus, you have apps installed, you have a notepad if you want to make some notes here. You even have a dev center if you want to develop some apps for Pooter.com. And it has a coding environment and a webcam, which it works. I tested it earlier, but it's not going to work here because my cam's already in use. So, it's got some apps already. It has a terminal, which looks a lot like Linux.
Until you try to run anything.
Until you try to run anything, it's not Linux at all.
It doesn't even have neofetch. What's the purpose of it if it doesn't even have neofetch?
Yeah, I would figure that out. If you have to develop some apps for it, port some Linux stuff over to it.
There you go.
And if you want to, you can even save stuff in here permanently if you set up an account. And you can come back here and keep your notes here, keep your code here, keep
wait.
I don't know.
Wait, Ken says it does have neofetch. Hang on. We got to confirm this. Does it actually have neofetch?
Oh, there it is. It does. So it has neofetch. It doesn't have tab complete though.
It is a real computer. It has neofetch.
Yes, and that logo for their cloud or whatever they call that, computer shell, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't look. I don't know. It looks weird. I'll just say that.
That's
it looks
hilarious.
Weird.
That is in the spirit of what we are looking for command line tips. It's goofy, it's fun. I approve.
Yeah, that's all I got for you today. Something goofy fun, but I'm working on something. I just wasn't quite ready for it tonight for the show, but I'm working on something that I should be ready next week. It should be an interesting, fun tip.
All right, very cool.
Give you a bad.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to give you a bad time, Rob, about trying to run Windows on your Linux desktop, but NeoFetch pulled it out of the fire for you. So okay, I'll give you that one.
There you go. All right. I've got one that we can talk about, and that's gpioinfo. So this is useful for the Raspberry Pi if you're there, because it does have built-in GPIO stuff. But come to find out, most of our computers are going to have some GPIO in there somewhere. And if you are curious about what all those are, then gpioinfo is definitely one of the places to turn to. Let's see. I've got a window capture here. We can real quick take a look at what it looks like. You could just run. Usually, you have to run with sudo because it's looking for /dev/gpiochip0 through however many you've got. Like, for example, the Raspberry Pi 5 has like 4 different GPIO chips built into it. It's kind of ridiculous. So just run sudo gpioinfo, and it'll give you this long list of your individual lines on your GPIO chip. So on this laptop, for instance, I've got it lists 255, starts with 0, so 256 of them. Most of them are input, a few output. It does show, like, for example, there's an interrupt line in there at line 18, so that is fairly interesting. Another one over here has the BIOS disabled, all sorts of interesting little tidbits. Now, most of these lines are not actually used for anything on this hardware, but if you have hardware where you're playing around with GPIO, it could be extremely useful. And that is part of the GPIOD package on most distros. And pretty useful potentially, again, for playing around with general purpose input and output. Ken, let's talk about the time. What time is it, Ken?
Well, the current time is time to explain how you can get time easier for your scripts than having to try to dig out those how to type in date and put in all the pluses and percentages and A, B's, and C's. Basically, I've got a function. If y'all got the show notes pull up, you'll see it. It's called CURRTIME. That's CURRTIME. And it creates variables that can then be used. These are global variables, by the way, that can then be used when the current time is needed. It assigns and updates the current time every time you run it. The very first one, of course, is time, T-I-M-E, all caps, that's created. It'll give you the current time as hour, minute, and second. Now, if you want to be more specific on that time, you've also got nano, capital N, capital A, capital N, capital O. This will allow you to get the nanoseconds. So after that, if you put echo $time, then a period, then $nano, that would print out that time with the seconds going out to the nanoseconds. Then, of course, there's variables. So if you just want to get the hour, the minute, or the second, or if you need to get the epoch. In other words, how many seconds it's been since the 1st of January, 1970 Universal Time Code.
Yep. So that's not only useful, I like this one because it pulls together various tips that we've given over the last couple of years and sort of demonstrates what you can do with them, putting these things together. So really useful. I like that. I may have to grab that function and put it in my bash RC as well, because I can see that being useful. All right, Jeff, we finally got you on Fedora, and here you are back in Ubuntu. My goodness.
I just had to bookend it with a little bit of Debian love. So my tip for this week is apt search. So this is for when you know kind of what you want, but you don't know the exact package name. There's apt search. So apt search will find packages that you want to install, but you might not know the name of. For example, if you want to install the latest NVIDIA driver, if you do a sudo space apt space search space NVIDIA dash driver, you will get all the drivers that match that regex pattern. So depending on how much you put into the search terms will depend on how much you get back. So if I would have done just, for example, a sudo apt search NVIDIA, there would have been a huge number of package results because it's pulling in things that aren't drivers that might be support libraries and things like that. So this is good when you're kind of like, I kind of know what it is, but I need to, for the command line, you need a more specific name. That's where search comes in. So you can find something that you can't quite remember everything for. So apt search to the rescue.
Mm-hmm. And pretty much all of your package managers will have something like that. DNF search. I'm sure the others do as well. But yeah, super useful. Indeed. All right. So that is our tips as well. I will give each of you a chance to get a last word in or plug something if you want to. Let's start with Ken. What do you have for us, sir?
Well, in the show notes, I've got a link to one of the to a Humble bundles, Humble Tech Book Bundle. This one's for IT management by Taylor and Francis. Pay what you want and help charity. Gives you, I want to say, like 27 different books that you can get for as little as $25 for all of them.
All right, very cool. And Rob?
Nothing special, just my usual. Come find me, connect, robertpcampbell.com. And you can go to my LinkedIn, or you can go to my Mastodon, or you can buy me a coffee here and leave me a tip for all the wonderful happiness I bring you.
Yes. All right. And Jeff?
Nothing really this week. Just another little bit of poetry corner. The website you seek cannot be located, but endless more exist. Have a great week, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much to everyone for being here, both live and on the downloads. We appreciate you all. And the only things I will plug is over at Hackaday. You can follow my work there. We got the security column on Fridays. And then now we have Floss Weekly, records there pretty much every Wednesday. Although this week we were talking to the OG himself, Randall Schwartz. And because of a scheduling conflict, we're doing that interview on Tuesday. So if you want to be there live to listen for Randall, it's Tuesday, normal time, Tuesday in the Hackaday Discord. And I hope to see you all there. And I hope to see you all next week on the Untitled Linux Show.